Sorry. I have somebody come to the door right when I hit live.
Okay.
So, but we're live
Okay,
right
we
now.
ready to go? Hello, everyone, and welcome to Canadians with Disabilities and Their Allies. My name is Brent Frain. I'm the host, and today I'm launching a new series. It's on Disability Stories Health, and I want you to subscribe to Neil Matheson's YouTube channel, stay up to date on the latest shows, and you can check out the show on your favorite app, Spotify or the Apple App Store. And definitely, to stay up to date on what's going on. And I mean, health, it's a huge topic for everybody across Canada, obviously. I mean, but people with disabilities, definitely that's the segment that we're focusing on today, because health is connected in so many ways with income inequality, different issues, and we're going to dive right into that. So I'm going to hand the mic over to Neil, and we're going to go from there. And there's 3 topics we're going to be focusing on today.
Yeah, and again, how can you tell it's a live show?
It's live, yes.
Because I get interrupted
on today's show.
I get interrupted all the time.
Normal goes.
But anyway, so what we wanted to focus on today, because it's the first segment, we wanted to kind of streamline 3 main points. And the first point, if when I read it out, people are going to say, well, that's an easy one. You can easily go down the rabbit hole of MAID, and I know it'll be very easy to go down the rabbit hole, and I know MAID is an important thing to cover, but for the purposes of today's show, I want to try to answer this first point without going down the MAID rabbit hole, because we'll keep MAID for next week's show, and
right.
We'll open it up. We'll open up MAID and other topics for next week. So when I mention this first topic, we're going to try to cover it without going down the rabbit hole of MAID. So I hope that makes sense. So the first point,
the government covers MAID first on behalf as it is. So let's not.
Yeah. So the first point I'd like to cover is the whole point of the doctor oath of do no harm. And we can say that the do no harm of the doctor's oath is at odds with the government PWD policy and legislative poverty, right? And then we can say, how are doctors and dentists, etc., like nurses or whatever too, stepping up to advocate for patients? And how could government get out of the way? I know. MJ always talks about, I wish government would get out of the way. So we can talk about that, like how can government get out of the way and let doctors and dentists, look after their patients the best way possible? Because right now we can easily see how government policy and the do no harm mandate does not match up, right? So we can talk about that. That's the first one we can go with. So let's go ahead and do it.
All right. Well, the first topic here, we'll look at doctors that do no harm, right, versus government. So, it's correlation, right? If you don't have your health, then what do you have, right? So, the doctors, they've designated persons with disabilities in Canada as a designation on our system as a systemic issue because it's designed purposely full of keeping people, in legislative poverty in Canada. And I don't say that very lightly, but I just I don't sugarcoat it. I just say, well, it is. And people say, well, what do you mean legislative poverty? Well, I mean, it's imposed. These systems were designed many, many decades ago. I don't know who designed them. I really don't know. But it's cruel. It's inhumane. To have people living well below a standard of living. So with that being said, people's health, it becomes compromised. Now, doctors, they know patients' health. I mean, they know who their patient is. And so they would know better than what government knows. And so that's that correlation where doctors do no harm. Well, and I mean, it depends on if your condition is diagnosed correctly. because there's a lot of misdiagnosis too, right?
Well,
But then,
that's point number two. So
yeah,
we'll
point
save
number
that
two.
for
So,
we'll save that for point
yeah, we'll
number
save
two.
that to point two, and
Yeah.
I'll jump into that when I have my turn to kind of dive into that part. But I just want to quickly touch on that little part, so kind of a prelude into that. But yeah, I mean,
So
doctors know
are we
better
just gonna
than
go
government.
around?
Yeah, we're gonna
Yeah,
go around.
We're just gonna.
Yeah,
Okay.
doctors know better than what the government knows, and I want to see the system regulated across where people can live in with dignity, respect, and have autonomy, and those three things, and I mean, obviously, income equality, but that really kind of stems into what I'm saying is that we can do better as Canada. I mean, for all of our citizens, for sure. So I'm going to pass the mic over to you, Neil, and then you can direct to the next person. Hello, the film is ready.
Yeah, and we're going to try again the whole format of the show, because we're going to try to keep it at roughly about an hour. It's going to be hopefully kind of like a speed dating. So so we're just going to be like rapid fire going around and around.
Okay.
So let's go to MJ first, if MJ wants to pipe in. Is MJ there, or is he frozen? He actually looks frozen. So let's let's go to Dan then instead.
Yeah, just to be brief on it then, I just think that, we hear a lot of stories. They need to discuss with their patients, right? Like, we've heard a lot of stories that the government aren't in line with the community's needs. They're actually not in line with the doctor's needs either. A lot of it here in Ontario, I don't know about in BC, but a lot of it's going to privatization and stuff. The bottom line is if they keep going like they are, a lot of people are going to suffer needlessly. So they need to have some kind of correlation with, as we always say, the lived experience at the table to try to help, because there's so many varying needs in the community, whether you have a physical disability or it's what we call, whatever you would label it, internal disability, what have you. Many different ones. So yeah, they just need a better correlation with lived experience at the table.
Ellen, do you want to pipe in? You there, Ellen? Ellen's not there either. I can.
See, once my camera started working, all of theirs went down. My bad.
It's your fault, Dan. One of the things that I can speak on, Brent. I mean,
yeah.
Dan, you hit the nail on the head when you talked about lived experience, because when I'm talking about how doctors and dentists are stepping up in the absence of government, I can say from personal experience, for example, like my dentist that I go to, it's been over 10 years now that my first wife passed away, and and actually my parents ended up phoning my dentist and letting him know what had happened, and then they weren't looking for sympathy or anything. They were just saying, just to let you know, like, matter of factly, this is what's happened to my son. His wife passed away, and the provincial government is clawing back his survivor's pension. So at that time, because it just happened, my support went from $1,500 a month of PWD down to $400. So my maximum support, because I was working too before she died. So my maximum support, with the two of us, we were both able to make $800 each. So I was making $800, she was making $800 plus the $1,500. That's like 30, or actually it was $1,700. So that's $3,300 a month that we had of income, and it went down to $1,100 because I only had $400 of provincial support and then $700 of my pension. So it went from $3,300 a month all the way down to $1,100. And my parents just kind of said, well, this is what's happening to my son. And again, it's not to get pity or sympathy or anything. They just said, this is what's happening. Like, can you do something? And right away, like to the dentist's credit, he said that's disgusting. He says that's disgusting, inexcusable. That's terrible what they've done. And he says, I commit to making all my services for your son and his son Jake, completely free. So if there's any kind of even like cavities or anything or x-rays, like 100% covered. And and then he retired, and but then the other dentist that took over agreed to do the same thing. Sorry, but I can't silence the phone. I'm trying to. So that's the point, that here's a dentist that I acknowledged that what the government was doing was terrible, and said, I'm prepared to take up the slack as a doctor and look after the patient as should happen, right? As should happen. I'm going to take up the slack of what the government is not doing. So that's my example. And I know you've often shared your example of, say for example, when Gordon Campbell took over, he kind of forced everybody to get reassessed, and that again, that's a question of like not trusting the medical assessments of doctors previously, and saying, well, we don't really trust the doctors. Let's give everybody reassessed again, right? So I mean, you can speak of that.
Sure. Thanks, Neil. It comes down to a systemic issue when it comes to governments across Canada. Trying to save a buck, from the government on the backs of the disabled people, it's really sad. When it comes down to their patients' mental health versus their physical health, their dental health. A lot of these fee schedules are so outdated when it comes to dentists, for instance. I know in BC, I'm not sure about Ontario or other provinces. I'm sure pretty close to that. They're outdated. They just haven't been modernized. And so when a person's dental health is compromised, it really affects their whole well-being, their mental health, their physical health, because it has other impacts on their health. They can develop other health conditions where maybe they don't qualify originally under the government provincial programs, like for supplements, for instance. If you don't qualify for your different supplements that you can apply for, saying I want a vitamin supplement or I want mineral supplement or whatever it is, you need these other conditions. So it's a domino effect, is that if you don't get the proper coverage, now you get these other conditions because the government has neglected to give, say, a dentist the actual proper coverage for the recipient to keep their dental health updated. Now you're going to have other problems within your system. And so it's a whole breakdown, and now you say, oh, well, I get these other supplements, I can apply for them. Well, originally you don't qualify because the doctor says, well, hey, you don't qualify because you don't have that condition. I mean, nobody wants added conditions to their health, their well-being. So it comes down to, like I say, income versus health. And again, getting to your comment about Gordon Campbell, our one of our previous premiers in BC, had gone through and told the finance minister at the time to go along and find ways of saving the government money. Well, let's go in and get persons with disabilities in our province to be reassessed to see if they're still disabled. But really, the underlying issue was they wanted to save money on their healthcare system. Why? Because, maybe Ottawa didn't kick in enough money, I don't know, or maybe mismanagement, who knows, but it was cruel. It put me personally under a lot of undue stress and anxiety at the time. It created a PTSD for me for a good while. I had to cope for 3 months with no income. I was renting a basement suite from a friend of mine, and it put stress on the landlord, because the landlord then says, well, I need my money to pay my mortgage, and that's why I'm renting to you. So it's either you get the government to reinstate your income or you're going to have to move. And I would have been homeless. I couldn't move back to my mom's because she was actually in a care home. We had just recently put her into a care home at the time. So really, like, it caused me a lot of health. It impacted my health, my well-being, because I couldn't buy food. I had to go to a food bank, and I didn't get all the nutritional supplements that I needed for myself. I tried applying for other supplements through the government. I didn't qualify because I didn't have those conditions. You know what I mean? And so I went to my dentist because I was having dental problems. My dentist told me, you need to eat better, Brent. You need to take care of your health. You need to eat better, eat healthy food. Otherwise, your teeth are going to have problems. You know, as a kid, I know everybody needs to take a turn, but as a kid, of course, you know, I used to get more cavities, malnutrition because, of course, as a kid, I wouldn't eat certain things. My mom would make that on me. But my mom did the best she could, bringing me up by making sure I did have the proper foods and minerals. But I'd be picky, certain things I wouldn't. But I did the best I could. But over time, you get cavities. Then over time, they compound. And over what happens as you get older, they break. And then they fragment. And then the dentist blames me. Well, you're not taking care of your teeth. Yeah. You know, I had a dentist, Neil, and you guys, everyone listening, who mistakenly thought it was a cavity, but actually what it was calcium buildup. And so they called it a buckle. They used the terminology. They used to, what is that? And we got a buckle on blah, blah tooth. We got another buckle on there. And so he would start taking teeth out. Well, then your teeth start shifting.
Right.
So, you know, I lost a lot of molars over the years, and I don't talk about it on the podcast, right? Because but I lost a lot of molars, and I've learned over time, your mind adjusts to how you eat, how you process. And I'm thinking, oh no, I lost another tooth. Oh boy, dentist said, you got to save that. You know, that's a very important tooth. You can't lose it. So I went to the government.
Goes back to the do no harm thing, right?
Yeah, and so I went to the government and like a government of the day and their opposition, and they said, budget better, Brent. You need to budget better. Well, how do you budget better? The dentist says, well, you need a job, Brent, that will give you equivalent of what an MLA makes, because we can actually do, we can call false teeth. We can actually do implants, but that's going to cost like $10,000 per tooth. I'm like, oh my God, or we can bridge them. And now the government won't cover, like, I'm not in that stage where I need to get dentures, but they only cover one denture, not both. And so I haven't gone down that rabbit hole yet, but that's scary to know. So that's my story.
Okay. Let's go back to MJ. He's not frozen anymore.
You're not frozen in time.
You can sing the Let It Go, Let It Go.
It just, all of a sudden my computer just froze on me for no particular reason. And I was like, what the hell? Yeah, so I had to go and do a hard kill and come back. So, you know, trying to navigate the healthcare system is like, you know, when I was trying to go and get diagnosed, you know, it's like they run you around. You got to go for this type of imaging, go for this type of testing, and they want this, that, and everything else, right, to go and get your disability. And it's like they run you through the ringer, and then it's like, then they deny you the first time because that's their protocol, to deliberately deny you.
Yeah.
Right? Which to me is absolutely retarded. If you're disabled and you meet it, you know, it's like, and then you have the PPMD system, which I don't know if you guys have been through it, but for the people listening, it uses a scoring system like, you know, the tests in school where you had to go and fill in the little box of which one applied to you, which most of them are absolutely innocuous, stupid questions that bear no relevance to an actual disability or being disabled. Right? So so they've created this system to waste your time. And you know, when it comes to, you know, with health, I mean, I've had a bad back my entire life. It happened from a car accident when I was 8 or 9 years old. You know, basically, my dad was chasing my uncle who had the first RX-7 in BC. My dad had an RX-4 hatchback. You know, rear tire blew because it was bald. And we went spinning one way, and then we went spinning the other way. We went flying off the road. uprooted a boulder about a good 10, 12 feet tall and landed in the swamps down in the lower mainland, when there was swamps out there before they filled them all in.
Yeah.
Now, ever since then, I've had a bad back, and finally getting diagnosed for the bad back took me like almost my whole life, right? It took me till, 40 something years here, 30 years to go and finally get a diagnosis. I gone to the doctors, I complained about it, I said there's problems. It's like doctors it's like, oh, well, just do exercise, do yoga, do this. And it's like, doc, you're missing my point, right? I've had this problem since I'm 7, 8. It's like, explain to them. And it's like, and trying to go and get doctors to actually do things, to go and actually come up with a diagnosis, it's almost like pulling teeth. It's like one of my doctors, he was more interested in prescribing pills and running me through the pill mill, and having me come back every other week, to see how the things were going so she could get paid for more checkups.
Yeah.
Right. And to me, it's like, it's like, so it's like when you're having a crisis of dealing with, just stress, life, or anything like that, it's like, oh, so we'll pay for only so many counseling sessions, but after that, you've got to pay for it on your own, right? So it's like one of the problems here is in BC, particularly, where they use Blue Cross, but then they have this department ahead of them going and deciding what they're willing to pay for, right? I mean, to me, okay, just pay for Blue Cross Premium Plus, whatever the heck, right? Pay for that, and then just pay for the deductible. The amount of money that would be saved by just paying the deductible, right? Instead of having this entire menagerie of nonsense in the way would actually save us billions of dollars. But, they don't want to go and do simple things. They want to make it harder and try to justify the existence of this idiocy that they've truly created. So they make it hard for, healthcare system. They make it hard to become disabled. Then they go and tell you, you're not good enough to be completely disabled. You're not good enough to be on PPMD. Then you got to go back to your doctor again and wait for your health to get worse because you don't meet all the conditions. And you can't go, your doctor keeps running you around in circles on other stupid crap when you're there to go deal with one specific issue.
Yeah, and you've actually answered the second question better. Actually, your response was more in line with the second question. But I did want to get back to the first one to ask Alan if he has any good examples of a doctor or a dentist coming, kind of advocating for you, Alan. Do you have an instance of a doctor or dentist advocating for you in the absence of the government or not?
Not really. Right now, I'm trying to figure out the disability tax credit paperwork.
We can barely hear you, Alan.
You're getting some weird feedback on your
1 second. Yeah.
Okay.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Is that better at all?
That's better. Yeah.
That's way.
Yeah.
Okay, I had the headphones backwards. Darn thing. I mean, they work, but they. Anyway, so I'm fighting with this. I'm fighting with this whole thing where I have to get the disability tax credit, especially if they put the new disability benefit through, and that's what they're going to use. I need it regardless whether I can access the benefit from it directly. But I'm having the doctor say, "Oh, that'll be a $75 charge for us to fill it out," and it's so frustrating because I can't even get OHIP to take up tab. Like $75 out of my bank that's like a week and a half of groceries.
That's big money for us. Yeah. Huge money.
Right? Like it's no big thing, and I'm like, ODSP won't cover it, and I get that it's provincial versus federal, but it would be nice if a doctor could bill OHIP for the form if you have a disability. Like if you're on ODSP and you're having to fill out a federal form, of any kind that's strictly directly relevant to having a disability. It's like, you're killing me, guys. Like, um, I've I've had a few doctors in my life that were generally pretty understanding of was, but they've all retired. I moved up to Kingston, and now I just got my first stage of blood work. That's actually, I actually got a phone call from my doctor telling me to come in. It's not, I don't actually have a doctor, but it's a walk-in clinic. So we'll see how this goes on Wednesday. But I don't know. They just seem to want to rush out of the office. I don't know if I can say that they harmed me in any way specifically. I told the doctor that I wasn't, when I was in Niagara, that might blow up this form for me. That I don't want to be in pill mill. Don't prescribe me something
me neither.
to not. Don't throw me through the pill mill, because when I was dealing with my psoriasis at this women's college in Toronto, which is like a hospital, I think Dan might know it, or know of it. It's on college, and they were like, this is prior to getting the injection. So when you have psoriasis, you have to go through the creams and the light treatment, and it's all bogus, because they're all band-aids, because they don't actually treat the actual problem, which is an autoimmune disorder, where your skin cells are, the eczema and psoriasis particularly, it's mostly a gut and liver condition, where your body's developing skin cells, and the plaques are just cells dying off on top of each other. So if a regular person's skin cells develop, and it's a cycle of 7 days, the eczema and the psoriasis are like 5 days. So the trick is to slow down the immune system so it regulates itself. So now I'm getting the injections, but when I was in Toronto, I was having to walk around with a regular cocktail every time I went out, because I had to take 3 of this and 2 of that, and I had to take this on a full stomach. So I was spending money when I was out that I didn't have, because I had to eat with this stuff. So I had 2 options: stay at home and do nothing, not go to work with Jamie, or walk around with these pills and constantly buying sandwiches or a burger at McDonald's or whatever, because I constantly had to eat, and I couldn't. It wasn't really helping. So when I came back to Niagara, my dermatologist was really good. He hooked me up with this dermatologist in Hamilton, and they got me on the Care program, which means I now get my injections, which do the same as all the pills, and it doesn't matter whether I eat or not. I get one every 12 weeks. Okay. And the only spots I've got left now where I was covered 90% of the time was on my elbow. So I guess in a removable way, that I had a dermatologist that stepped up, and I'll leave it there.
Okay. Thanks, Ellen, on that. That's very interesting on your situation. And
I could have just said dermatologist and we got her to the front of the thing, but it didn't occur to me till halfway through that.
Yeah, but I'm sure a lot of people that are listening and watching live, are listening later. I mean, watching live now, it can probably really relate to what you've gone through, and their stories are so important too. And I really encourage people.
The psoriasis was bad. I mean, the psoriasis was like 80% of my body. It's funny, because I went to one of these, what they call them, trials, and one of the requirements was you had to be 80% covered, and they have a doctor make sure that during an exam that your 80% of your body is covered by psoriasis. And I went in for it, and 2 days later they called me and told me I wasn't eligible because I didn't have enough. I'm like, so I was like, okay, you guys are a bunch of kooks. Goodbye.
Well, Well, you make a great point though, Alan, about because there's so much. I mean, people assume that everybody on PWD is getting like all this free medical coverage, and there's so much that isn't covered, right?
Oh,
And
absolutely.
it's just coming
Neil.
direct out of our own pockets. And I know MJ had another follow-up question before we move on. Before we move on to
I did too
our
after MJ.
Okay, go ahead, MJ.
Well, I mean, I was talking, when I was talking before, basically, it finally took me to go and basically say to my doctor, look, my back is always killing me. It's like I sit down, I lie down, I stand up. I mean, I'm in constant pain. What the hell's going on? Until, it's like she finally figured, it's like I'm getting tired of wasting my time in your pill mill. And I quit doing it in favor of smoking weed because it just made more sense, quite frankly. It works for me, but that's me. I mean, I just really got to that point where it was like finally when I got to that place for myself to be better to advocate, say, hey, this is what's going on. I finally got the doctor to go, oh, geez, okay. And I don't know if that was really advocating for me, but it's just trying to fight this system of all they want to do is find reasons for themselves to make money and not actually go and actually, I don't know, I guess provide proper care. It's like they tell you go into the office, oh, we can only talk about one issue, and it's like I've been trying to get in to see you for like 3 weeks, or 6 weeks, all these issues are here, so it's like they make it even worse for you to get ahead with your own medical and your own care. Because
I have a certain empathy to the doctors. I think a lot of them are so stressed because they're so overloaded that when Big Pharma comes in and says, we have X, Y, and Z in prescriptions and we need you to push them, and if you push them, we'll give you X amount of dollars. The doctors are almost addiction to that incentive because it means that they can keep their doctor's office and their nurses and receptions paid, right?
Yeah.
That they almost become bought and paid for by the pharmacy because they are so overwhelmed. Now, I'm not saying there aren't some bad apples in the medical field where they just want to give out pills because it means you're getting the patient out the door. But at the same time, I think a lot of these doctors are under such strain that as soon as a big pharma comes across and says, hey, we need you to kind of push that narrative.
And then you have the news hour brought to you by Moderna.
Yeah.
I would like to hear what Dan has to say on this if because I haven't heard from him. If you don't mind, Dan.
Well, he did speak earlier.
Okay.
But maybe you weren't.
Oh, well, that probably was speaking right when my computer froze.
Oh, that's possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have any final comment on this one, Brent?
Yeah, I just had a quick little follow-up, just kind of an add-on to what I had mentioned. We're talking about like different coverages and stuff. And I remember, and of course I would never go down that rabbit hole again because it's just not covered under your basic dental plan. When you want a major procedure done, a root canal, and then a crown, that was just so lengthy procedure. Wow. Like hours. I took my dentist 5 hours. 5 hours. Because there's so many roots in one area, they had to pull everything out. And imagine mouth wide open. Do you need to take a break? For a few minutes. So, they were still doing procedures. So I would really, kind of release my jaw because it was getting so darn sore. He says, hang in there, buddy, hang in there. You're a trooper. He kept, and it got to a point where I was getting dehydrated, so they would get a straw and they would actually put it, all their equipment and this and that. But long story short, $1,500 per tooth, like a root canal and then a crown. And they had to do 3 of them. Wow. They had to do 3 of them, different appointments, go back, and it's not covered under my dental plan. So, yeah, just your basic, your procedures. My dentist at the time, I was lucky because my dentist, like yours at the time, did 100% coverage. They absorbed the other 20% because the fee schedule, according to the provincial government, would only cover up to 80% coverage. And then you patient would have to pay 20% out of pocket. My dentist covered PWD because they said, well, we're just going to absorb the cost, right? You guys can't afford that. But unfortunately, when it came to a procedure like that, I had to pay it out of pocket. So I had to imagine 3 of them. So that's $4,500. I had to make payments over a 6-month period. They gave me 6 months to basically pay it, and I had to pay it out. So it came out of my check. And he goes, of course, now you can't buy nutritional foods. Now you're here at the dentist, and I'm supposed to be here taking care of your dental health. But we got to now go through that revolving door. Yeah. So he said the government needs to do better, right? And that's kind of the theme going forward. Like, and that's why we're doing a series about health, like health and how it's so important to a person's well-being. And I know the systems can be fixed. I don't think today we won't have time to dive into that. We'll probably talk more about that on the next series or the series
after. We're probably going to do a three-parter, maybe
three or four.
4 of this one, yeah.
Probably 4. I think 4 because there's one series that I would like to dive into. Also, one of the other series going forward would be talking about the dental plan, the national dental plan, the Canada, the one that just is getting launched out, and also another series on the health. I want to talk about diabetes. That'll be another part I want to talk about. We're going to do that on that series. Sonia's that's like, yay!
The toaster oven's not working.
Breaking news! The microwave just clunked right out. That's why I stepped away. She's like, it's not working.
The microwave went,
and
then the toaster oven went.
And the toaster oven went. So, it's a double whammy. Oh boy.
Anyway, Dan, did you have a comment as well before we move on to?
I was just going to be very brief for MJ there. Like my health upbringing, so to speak, in the past couple of decades, has pretty much been on my own. When it comes to ailments and such, I have anxiety, PTSD, and my physical ailments are scoliosis and a little bit of arthritis going on. And I also suffer part-time from migraines. I'm not on one single pill. Not one single pill. I smoke a 24% sativa, and I'm not doing it all through the day, but I smoke it at the times that I need it, which is mostly at nighttime and when waking up. And I acknowledge and respect science and advise people to see their doctor and seek professional medical attention, absolutely. But for myself, this is just the way it's worked out. So I agree with MJ on that front.
Yeah. See, I mean, it came, I came to it because it was like I had the doctor running me through the pill mill. Is it possible to mute Brent? It's hard to.
Sorry, 1 second. I will temporarily do that.
Sorry, Brent, we got to mute you.
Oh, I think he's back anyway now. It's fine.
Oh, damn it, Brent, now you got to mute yourself. Sorry. We didn't know how long you're going to be.
Yeah. Sorry about that. We just still a technical thing there. I think we got it fixed.
I mean, one of the things with the doctors, it's like when they're running you through the pill mill, they want to try every single pill, and it's like the doctor was throwing me on ADD or ADHD meds, which of course you happen to know is a derivative of methamphetamines. Thank you very much. Which didn't help any, made things even worse for me. So I just finally said I've had enough, and I just basically took all the pills back to the pharmacy and said, here you go, you can have them, have a nice day. Throw them out, do something with them. I don't want them. I mean, probably could have sold them on the street, but I didn't do that. I did the proper thing. Then I went and started smoking pot after that. And, this is just my journey. I'm not saying that other people should do it. So this is, everyone has their own journey, right? That works for them, so when it comes to trying to find solutions to all of these things, it's really our own healthcare is really our own journey of what works truly best for us. Because there's not one journey.
That's the thing too. We're going to cover that in point number 3, I think, a little bit. But let's go to point number 2, and that was how underlying medical conditions are sometimes disguised by the primary disability and misdiagnosed. How secondary underlying medical conditions other than the primary disability
Or
misdiagnosed because of the
Okay.
primary disability getting in the way.
Sure.
Let's
I'll
talk
quickly
about
jump
that.
in. I'll
Let's
just
talk
give
about
you a
that.
quick one.
Yeah.
So when I got diagnosed, when I went to my doctor, I kept kicking and screaming and biting and scratching and hollering and just everything. My mom said, no, you need to go and get onto disability, apply for disability provincial assistance. She said it's a pension. Of course, she was not really misdiagnosed, but misinformed because it was changed. It was changed 1 year before. 1 year before. So I went to the doctor and he said, so I know you better than you know yourself, Brent. I know you since you were just a little baby, right? Well, I know myself, right? I know what you're capable. I know I know you inside out, but you know how you feel though. And that was the difference. You know how you feel. I know who you are, but you know how you feel, what you're going through, what symptoms, what environmental things impact your life. I suffer from allergies every year. I mean, millions and millions of people do. I have to be careful of what I eat at times because I have allergic reactions to certain things. As I've become older, it's not to the same severity, but I still do get flare-ups at times. It can be pretty nasty this time of the year. But anyway, so I had gone through all the diagnosis. My doctor diagnosed me for my visual impairment. It's a scale of 1 out of 10. Mine's out of 5. So it's stabilized. It's not going to get better. It's not going to get worse, which I'm very fortunate that way. Conditions with me, with my condition is there's a variable. I had an operation, so it was very successful, but it left me with my condition, but pupil-wise, I was able to stay focused, straightforward, because before my eyes, if somebody looks at me, my eyes would just my pupils go back and forth. Mm-hmm. It's like a ping pong ball, bing, 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 right? So I was also diagnosed with ADHD. And also I didn't learn until another aspect when I was going through college. I already knew the condition was already there as an underlying condition, which wasn't diagnosed. I was told I had a learning disability on top of it by being diagnosed by a doctor who, when I was going through college at the time, I was struggling with certain things. And the instructor noticed that I was really having difficulty with certain things. I got paid and sponsored for by VRS. They're the ones who actually put me through, referred me while I was going through college. They referred me over to a doctor who then put me through that. So I got paid while I'm doing that, and they worked it while I was going to college. I was able to take certain days off in the college to go and do that. And it came to a forefront for me where I thought, it was very upsetting emotionally, because part of our course that we were doing is that we had to talk about issues of the day of how things are impacting your life. I had to then bring that forward to the class as part of the agreement to talk about me and what I was going through. So here I am, but you know what? That's just me, and I accept me. I like me for who I am, and that's just how it is.
Okay.
Boom.
Who would like to pipe in on this one? How underlying medical conditions are disguised by a disability?
So I'll just go very quickly for myself. So my physical disabilities actually happened when I was real younger, right? Had spinal meningitis, as I said, scoliosis, some back issues going through the years. MJ is going to love this one. But when I was diagnosed with my things and placed on ODSP here in Ontario, I was actually dragged to the clinic by an OW worker. Now, anybody that knows Toronto knows Coxwell and Queen area, the OW office is actually connected to a medical building. My energy was low. My skin tone was changing. At first it was thought maybe a liver problem. But my physical numbers were all okay. It was just like depression and anxiety running wild, combined with my addictions at the time. And I just didn't know how to deal with it. No, thankfully that she did that. Because as we've heard from Minnie and MJ and others, even Alan there too, most workers don't take that time to care. And I'll never forget the name Jill Payne, because she's retired now. But maybe they should take a little lesson from Jill Payne as to how to treat people with disabilities across the country.
Neil, thanks on that, Dan. I was going to quickly do a little follow-up, kind of what you just mentioned on that, Dan, too, is to my story is, and I've said this before on my podcast many times prior in the past. I worked for a corporation, and I'm not here to name the corporation and throw them under the bus. But,
I know who it is.
Yeah. But I loved my job. Like at the time, I loved what I was doing because I was working independently by myself. I didn't have to answer to nobody. Like I worked my way up to this peer of my as far as I could go with my job, and I kept having the mind would say you can do. I just kept pushing myself more and more and more because hey, I could do it, no big deal. And I injured myself. I didn't know how bad. I think okay, I hurt my back a little bit. No, like I more than hurt my back. It point time where I was so scared and in pain that I couldn't even. I fell out of bed, like literally fell out of bed, and it hurting my arm that was already. All the nerves were already, it was damaged all the way from my spine all the way up. And so now I hurt my arm on top of it. I didn't break anything, but my back, my discs were severed and under. One was slipped out of place. One was compromised. I don't even know the names, all the terminology. So yeah, but there was 4 discs, four of them. And when I got to see a graph, this is your spine. This is how everything is. It went up to my neck. Like everything's all connected all the way down. It was all the way down to my legs. And it took a lot of chiropractic and physiotherapy for several months. And going forward. So that's, that there's another disability added to the list. And I joked with the doctor. I said, oh, we'll just add that down to the pile. He goes, sure, why not, Brent? We'll just stack it up. And he had a great sense of humor. But I was scared because he called himself he says, I'm a doctor, I'm called the cracker. You're a cracker. Yeah. So you lay here, but you need to sign a document that states that I'm not responsible for anything going forward. So people who know about the procedure, they know what I'm talking about. And so I did. I said, fine. Yeah. And so basically the moment of time was the sense of relief of pain. It was just instant. It was gone. It was like, what? Like that was it. But then it was more pain because I had to get all the treatment. But getting to the stories of health, like how important it is to really take care of your health if the best way you can. And the governments need to step up to the plate here. All levels of government. You need to work together. You need to modernize policies, the healthcare. Dental coverage, like our dental coverage in BC. I don't know, Alan and Dan, in Ontario. Maybe you guys, after I mention this comment, maybe you can chime in. But our dental fee schedule is so outdated. It hasn't been updated since 2015. And dentists in BC will not, in a lot of cases, will not take recipients any longer. Like as soon as you say I'm a PWD, they just say, oh no, sorry, because they won't cover it because they say, well, it's like damage control because they're going to take the cost, right? And they know what's not covered.
Yeah. I didn't know. Does anybody else want to chime in on this question too? Or either MJ or Alan? Do you have anything to say on underlying conditions?
No.
Okay.
Not really. We kind of covered it.
We'll move on to the last one then. Number 3, how parents and caregivers are often overlooked as an important component in the healthcare when looking after elderly and PWD. And anybody has a comment on that one?
Sure, I'll quickly mention. I'll just only be 30 seconds on this one. I think they play a huge role. Number one role, really. Because they're the caregivers basically are there to provide the best support that they can. However, unfortunately, a lot of it's underfunded. by the governments. They don't provide the proper care in a lot of cases. If you got a home support worker who's a care or a carry that comes in and provides that service, unless they work independently for themselves, but if they're contracted by the government, then they're not provided the proper care. I mean, if you're in a facility, like if you go and you say providing that same service in a facility, they basically cut corners, right? So if somebody's actually in a facility for a period of time for whatever reason, there's a difference between that same service level of service versus at home care. Well,
I was even thinking like more so just how parents become the primary caregivers, right? Because I know like when I was younger, and I'll be very brief too, but when I was younger, my parents footed like so much of the cost of my disability. Like, I mean, when I had to do braces and orthotics and all, I mean, they were the ones that were bearing the brunt, the financial burden of all these braces. And the thing that needs to be stressed a lot is the fact that, especially when I was younger, like 50 years ago, or, all of this stuff was extremely experimental. Like, I just felt like a human guinea pig. It's like, well, let's try this, let's try this, let's try this. And you can say that fine, but whenever it was like, let's try this, there was always a huge cost associated with every try, right? And every time my parents were bearing the brunt of that cost, and it was like, and there was like, again, there was no manual, and yes, you had some doctors that were giving some guidance, but for the most part, it was like, well, you guys can figure it out. And I mean, even all these years later, it's like, well, you guys can figure it out, and we're kind of left to your own devices, and that's how people are falling through the cracks, right? So there's this huge burden of this assumption from both the medical community and especially government policy, where governments just assume, well, of course, you're going to have parents looking after their elderly parents, or of course you're going to have parents looking after their disabled son or daughter, but it shouldn't be an of course, really, because you got to really look at how much time, effort, and money is being like absorbed, and it's a huge burden on the whole family unit, and that does not get expressed enough. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. And
Exactly.
The floor.
Maybe Dan, what's your take on this?
Well, I totally agree with Neil. Their parents and caregivers, they're the eyes and ears of the people that can't be their own eyes and ears, right? Just as an example, in my building here, I'm not trying to rub it in. I hate to say it, but it's got to be told so everybody knows the truth, right? I'm fucking lucky. Oops. I'm lucky because I live in a building that's stored with PWDs, like caregivers and food banks and nurses and people that can help those that need the help, right? And it's what Neil just said. It boils down to so many people fall through the cracks because it's just assumed that every problem is the same problem, and it's not. We all have different problems, varying issues, and this privatization, and I won't touch on it a lot, but this privatization that's happening here in Ontario now, and it's just ridiculous, right? I think back, and I won't touch on this either because I know it's a topic for another show, but I think back to when I had spinal meningitis. I was 3 months old. There was no vaccinations. There was no nothing. My mom was left to just hope and pray. And some rhyme or reason, I came through it, right? I always think to myself, ever since the topic of MAID has come up, what would my life have been? Would I have even had a life? Would I be sitting here right now? Because at the time it was told to my mother, your son is not walking out of here. He's leaving in a wheelchair or a body bag. So, it's like you guys said, we got to get to some point where we all work together and understand that there's more than just one issue going on. It's not just our own, it's everybody's across the country. And we're never going to get it right unless we work together with everybody on these life and death issues.
Thanks on that, Dan. And I'm going to touch on what you mentioned. It's a lot of people in outside the disability community that that maybe are not impacted because of somebody that they know that has a disability. You know, I mean, we're here to educate people, but bring people on board that do have disabilities, or families that have disabled, you know, their either their caregivers or their family members, and like everybody's impacted one way or another. And it's about fixing the system, a systemic issue that's been neglected, deliberately neglected for way too long. I remember growing up when I had to get orthotics, and my mom would go to you know, would go to some kind of government place and say, well, you know, Brent needs this. Oh, okay, well, yeah, okay, there's nothing we can do for you. And so she would actually have to go and borrow money from a neighbor, so, and then make payments to that neighbor to get me orthotics, because I have flat feet, and so I wear through shoes really fast. I still wear through shoes fast, so I have to get, you know, good enough shoes. I still wear some shoes I probably shouldn't wear, but because I can't afford to get really expensive shoes. And so like I'll wear on one side of my shoe a lot bit more than the other side. And
myself too. Yeah, my inner shoe worn right to the.
Yeah, and it's because the doctor said it's how I walk. It's how I walk, and it's because of my eye condition too. I think it's just the balance. Like I was told that when I was a kid. It's like your balance is off a little bit, but I mean I can walk straight ahead, but it's my feet sometimes they curve in. Yeah, mm-hmm. So yeah, but it's just part of who I am.
I tend to walk. I can't I'll start walking, and I can keep a pretty straight line as long as I'm looking straight ahead.
Right.
But I will notice that if I start on the left side of the sidewalk, and I try to give people as much room to go around me or whatever as possible, but I'll realize by the second block I'm on the right side of the sidewalk.
Oh wow!
Despite my best bet, but. Yeah. That's part of my cerebral palsy.
My perception is
off. It will track me.
Yeah.
It'll track me. And then I look at the inside of my cowboy boots and I'm going, holy crap, I don't even wear these as much. Like I've had many times had the opportunity to buy a pair of Doc Martens and I want the ones from England because they're actually like built like they used to be built. Now they're made in China and Korea, but you can still buy the Doc Martens made in England. They're $100 more than what the stores are selling. They're really expensive. I mean, you really gotta want to. And I really want a pair of a-hole black Doc Martens from like what was that movie? That English movie, something Trains. It was
Trainspotting.
Trainspotting. So I wanted to go back to that. I wanted to go back to that green duffel style sport jacket and the Doc Martens and the jeans because I shave my head anyway, and can I go back to my English roots of wearing Doc Martens all the time? But I'm like, at the same time, I'm like, until I can get orthotic inserts for my footwear, I don't want to spend $400 on a pair of Docs to get them shot in a year.
Well, I remember, Ellen, I remember going to the ministry's office and they have a clothing allowance. Right, so I went to them, and I was wearing through shoes fast.
Me too. Right?
Yeah, and so I went through, and it was a company I was working for at the time. Of course, I went through them really fast, and I won't even get into that. It's just yeah, it'd be like a censored, Brent, censored. But anyway, I had to do some plumbing. I had to help them with stuff. So I'll leave it at that. But I wore through 4 pairs of shoes in 1 week. I'll leave it there on that one, so you can imagine. But anyway, I was wearing through shoes just in general, doing my, where I was, and just even like today, like every day, like wearing through shoes. Some shoes were a little bit better how they're built, but so anyway, long story short, so I went to the ministry. I said, well, can I get a clothing voucher? Oh, you need to budget better. You need to live within your means. I'm sorry, we're not here for handouts. Maybe don't walk as much, Brent. I'm like, say what? Oh, I went up one side of them and down the other. Well, our decision's final. I go, no. Then I need to talk to your supervisor. Well, our decision's final. I go, I'm sorry, did you not hear me properly? I need to talk to your supervisor. Are you going to sign off on it or I'll take it to arbitration? Come back at 1:30 this afternoon. You know what? And I was told, come back at 1:30 this afternoon. We'll have a check for you. Wow. I go, that was hard now, wasn't it?
Yeah. That's the left shoe insert after 6 months.
Yeah.
After 6 months.
Yeah.
I think
I wear through shoes every day. Too, yeah. Or I used to at least.
See,
these are Adidas. They're $100 shoes.
Yeah.
Like I've killed them.
Yeah, and I would have
And
to. I was always forced. I was always forced to spend money on expensive shoes because of when you have cerebral palsy, like you have to look after your feet.
Yeah.
So I was dropping like at least $100 on shoes, at least bare minimum. And
my old man said
they would only last me like a month or something, and then I have to spend another $100 on another pair of shoes.
Oh yeah, I get maybe about maybe if I'm lucky, maybe like a really good shoe, maybe 3 months. But yeah, I mean sometimes a month and a half. But MJ, I think that you wanted to jump in there.
Yeah, this is one of the reasons why I end up going and buying my shoes from Marks, because they seem to be very good. I mean, I buy sandals for the summer, shoes, and I buy my boots there. All have memory foam.
Mm-hmm.
That way, I can have comfort.
Mm-hmm.
Because of my herniated discs, having that extra cushion makes a whole lot of difference. A lot of people don't realize that memory foam in your shoes makes a whole lot of difference when you have back problems.
On the spine.
Mm-hmm.
It does, and I mean, I basically changed, all of my shoes out to go and get stuff from there, because it's the only place that has the quality that I'm looking for.
Yeah.
It's just, that's a pain in the ass. It's like, when you're disabled, it's like, okay, now you got to spend $100 on a pair of shoes, or then you got to spend another $100 on boots for the winter. Then you got to spend another $100 on fucking sandals if you want to have sandals in the summer.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, that's $300.
Adds up.
And people think, oh, well, you got to find one of those days when they're, having a discount. It's like, okay, fine. And when does that happen? It happens 3 days.
Yeah.
3 days before you get paid. And it's one day only.
And
right?
if you do go, they'll have like one pair of shoes there. Like
that don't and it's the wrong size.
Exactly. The wrong size, you find it and it's the wrong size. It's like, oh, sorry, that's the only one. Too bad, but we have this $200 pair of shoes.
This one's on sale for $279. What do you think?
Well, I always tell them I'd like a rain check on this price. Then they go, oh, well, we can't do that. I said, well, shouldn't you, as the management, have stocked up on the products you intend to put out as a discount? Right?
Mm-hmm.
But this is the way things work. It's, I mean, I've already got a pair of shoes sitting in the hopper, and other pairs of sandals sitting in the hopper. It's like I bought ahead, so I could go and be at least a couple years ahead. When I had a special, they did a 2-for-1, so I'm like, might as well buy now 2-for-1.
Yeah.
And just stock up. And if you're lucky enough to have a credit card, when you're on disability, it helps. However, that's still extra money that you got to go and pay that debt off.
Yeah.
Right. Which then comes out of other living expenses, which
like
you have
food.
to make a decision about. Exactly.
Yeah. Sacrifices. Yeah.
Anyway, we've already reached the top of the hour, Brent. We've kind of blown a little bit past it, so it's time for closing comments already.
Yeah. I'll send a closing. I'll start with you, Dan, first.
No, it's always a pleasure talking with you guys because I learned that's the whole key to this, right? Is learn what you don't know and help educate others, right? None of us know everything. As we said before, not every individual issue pertains to everybody. So we just got to share, and share information with folks that need that extra help with regards to how to get things done with their doctors or, their local representatives or whoever it is they need to contact. And that's what we do here. And that's what I love about this. So yeah, thanks for doing this, guys.
Okay.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dan. And it's always a pleasure listening to insight from you too, and what you go through and your stories that you share with us, and it's awesome. I always appreciate you being on our panel and sharing your stories and everything else. So thanks again. Over to you, MJ.
I'll be right back.
Yeah.
when it comes to health, there's so many things that are lost in translation and lost in communication within the medical system. I mean, like for those of us that are on disabilities, having to have this extra layer for us to have to go navigate through to get permission, be able to get the services we need, which would be otherwise covered through Blue Cross directly if they just paid for it and let us to go to our own devices, right? This is where, to me, this overwrought behavior of government to instill itself in our lives to go and make it more difficult for people to go and get the healthcare services they need because they say, oh, we can't afford that or we won't pay for that, right? We end up in this whole situation where, for myself, I've got to get my CPAP machine replaced because it's on a recall. Had I been dealing with Blue Cross, I would have gone through multiple simple steps, right? And I would have been able to have the thing covered. The only thing the government would have had to pay for was the 20% that wasn't covered for the equipment. But instead, I've got to go through filing paperwork, asking for permission to go and please get me a new machine because my old one is on a recall, and I got to go 12 rounds. For me, that just shows how the ineptitude of our government thinking they need to be in every aspect of our lives goes and creates more problems for our health than actually going and making the system more beneficial for us and easing the stress of us going and saying, okay, I need to go to the dentist. I need new glasses. I need to do this. I need to do that. And these are things that would be covered directly under Blue Cross, right? Without the government interfering. And this is where I think the government interference needs to come to an end and give people the ability to go and use the Blue Cross directly without having to ask permission at every turn.
Thanks, MJ. That's a really, it really gave a really good, powerful overview of that. And it's like the theme of that the government just needs to kind of step away and let people make decisions that are based on what their needs are, and like the insurance companies. Deal directly with insurance companies, eh? I think
the frustrating thing, Brent, is, and I agree with MJ totally, is if all this red tape was bloody well cut down, things like orthotics and dental implants, glasses, orthotic inserts could all be well covered and taken care of in a dignified manner and an efficient manner, where if you're going, hey, one of my teeth came out because I'm missing two on the other side and I need to get 3 implants, and they're like, okay, well, it's going to cost you $100 a month for 6 months. Okay, no problem, because they know that you're on a payment plan. It's guaranteed. It's a UBI or whatever they're going to call it. It shows up that you got the coverage. It shows that you've got yourself either Blue Cross or Diageo or whatever the health plan you've got. They know they can bill it, and that $600 over the spread of 6 months is just the offset of what the insurance company won't cover. But instead of that denture being $1,500 a pop, it's now only costing you maybe $100 a month out of pocket. In 6 months, it's done. And if you're getting a UBI, and half of this red tape bullshit, to whether it's ODSP or PWD or ASH or whatever it is cut out. It's like that's a no-brainer. I'm getting $2,500 a month. I can afford that, and still pay rent, and my fridge isn't empty.
I think so.
And the whole food, I wouldn't go down the food bank rabbit hole, but it ties in to the whole health, because when 80% of stuff I get from the food bank, I better put down in my laundry room because I can't eat it. It's either expired or it's because I've got diabetes, I can't eat it anyway. So I'm like, why am I going 18 blocks off the bus run to get 3 bags of reusable stuff I can't use?
And it's exactly. There's a lot of these bureaucratic issues that it just doesn't need to be there. I mean, thanks on that, Alan. I greatly appreciate your
That's my closing statement. Let's cut the fat.
Totally. Well,
give me the bacon. I don't need the fat on the bacon. I need the bacon.
Give me the big scissors. I'll cut the red tape. And so I guess on my closing comment on that would be, as an overview of it all, and echoing everything that you guys have said, is there's too much bureaucratic stuff that's involved, and it's doesn't have, the systems don't have to be the way it is. I mean, if the system is designed like a UABI, like MJ, like your idea, I mean, or any idea like that, where now the insurance companies know guaranteed, hey, the money's going to be there. We can now do the procedure. We know that the funds are going to be there. Not hoping that maybe a PWD, we're going to have some funds. What is their coverage now? Oh, they've only got this much. Oh, now what is the chance that the recipient's going to be able to make their payments? What happens if they don't make their payments? Are we going to take the risk? That's what the healthcare providers probably look at too, like dentists. They're going to say, oh, what happens if they don't do it? Well, now they could be out of pocket, right? Well, now they have to try and go and chase after the recipient. I mean, wow. So I think all that red tape needs to be cut. I mean, give people a basic standard.
Yeah, and God bless. We should have to say God bless the doctors and dentists that are willing to take the bullet.
Yes.
Because there's so many that are. Like we have to say that. We have to acknowledge that so many are willing to do that, but they shouldn't have to. They shouldn't have to.
Dentists have said to me, Alan, if I could absorb 90% of the cost of each implant for you, I'd do it. And it would just be the cost of the tooth itself is not the majority of the implant itself, is not the majority of the cost. It's a porcelain tooth on a metal brace. It's putting them in. It's the time of putting them in one by one, and that's where the cost. He goes, if I could absorb that, then these implants wouldn't cost you much.
That's what I was told too, Ellen. I had a lot of consultations with my dentist about the same thing, and it's a lot of it's all red tape, and that's what the dentist told me. A lot of it's all bureaucratic red tape. He goes, you look at a lot of the government officials, and he didn't want to point fingers, but he says they're all well taken care of. He says it's all tax dollars. It's all there. We all get the tax dollars. It's all misconstrued. It's not proportioned properly, he said, and it really, like, the system doesn't have to be the way it is. He said we should be taking care of our Canadian citizens across the board. But
while the hierarchy and the 1% consider dental to be a cosmetic privilege, it will never bring the price down. That's also been a problem. It's like, oh, you need teeth. Well, that's cosmetic. So that's a privilege of earning money. Sorry.
You don't need teeth to eat. You don't need teeth to eat. And actually,
here's a straw.
You don't even need to
straw.
eat.
Yeah, you don't need to eat. Here's a straw for you. Yeah, exactly, MJ. Here's a straw for you.
Here's a straw.
But is that a paper straw? Oh, hang on. That's bad for your health.
Anyway, let's get out of here.
Yeah. All right. Thanks everyone for tuning in today, and please subscribe to Neil Matheson's YouTube channel. Stay up to date on the latest shows. If you want to be a doctor or a nurse or a practitioner on one of our upcoming segments on our new health series, reach out to Neil or myself, and we'll get you all lined up. And the more the merrier. If you want to be a guest on the show for another special segment, reach out to me also or Neil. Yeah. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in, and stay tuned to our next Part 2 series of disability health stories.
And they're coming to get you, Brent, because I hear the sirens.
They're coming. I hear
they're coming.
Oh no! Hi, Brent. Bye.
Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.
I'm in my back window.